He's one of the best. I miss working with him. He's Jay Bilas back here on the show. How are you, Jay?
I'm doing great, Rich. How are you?
I'm great. Who was the first, when you first walked in at ESPN, who's the first TV spot you had? Who was it with? What was it on? What was it for? Do you remember?
It was College Hoops Tonight, I think, and I think I did it with Dave Feldman.
Feldy. No kidding, College Hoops. And there was tonight, right? The number 2, right?
Yeah, College Hoops Tonight, and did some stuff with Feldy, and I did some stuff with Bill Pito. And Bill Pito was the one who turned to me at a break. He got a shot sheet, and there was a highlight for George Washington, and they had a big guy that was from Lithuania. So Pito, who you know very well, leaned over to me and says, "JB, how do you pronounce this guy's name?" And I said Yegor Masharikov, and he turns to me and says, "Ain't happening." And it just says the big guy from PW with the bucket, and never said his name.
That's great memory lane stuff, man. That's funny. What do you think was the biggest story to come out of yesterday, Jay?
Probably that there was no upset. There was no real upset. I mean, I was one of those, Rich, that was saying that the committee kind of screwed up in the seating, and I think it showed. I thought Minnesota was seeded way too high to 5, and even Vegas had Middle Tennessee as the winner of that game. So there really wasn't a lot. I actually looked for a couple upsets and probably overthought it. Earlier in the year, some of the coaches were saying, "Hey, anybody can win this thing," and oh boy, it's anybody's ball game, and there are 25 teams that can get to the Final Four. And I thought there are 25 teams that get to the Final Four. That'd be 6 per region. I mean, that's not even close to being true. And I went out on a limb, at least I thought, several weeks ago, and said, don't buy this thing about anybody can win. There are only a select few that can win in the tournament. And we'll see what happens today. There'll probably be some more upsets, but usually people gauge their enjoyment of the tournament by how many buzzer beaters there are. And yesterday there weren't any, and unless you count the Princeton Notre Dame game. But there wasn't any sort of that March Madness excitement that the average fan seems to really enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Jay Bilas here on the Rich Eisen Show. Why do you think Indiana fired Tom Crean during the tournament? I know their season's over, but it's not as if the coaching search can begin right now, even though a couple of guys on the list are coaching today, and Steve Alford with the UCLA, and obviously with Wichita State's Marshall. So what do you make of that, Jay?
My guess is it was just one of those kind of White House news dumps where they're just trying to. They did it right after the opening tip of the first game of the tournament, and I didn't see the reason to do it that way. And I certainly look. I'm a big boy. I get it. I understand that guys are going to get fired. That's the nature of the business. I don't think it was the right decision, but that's beside the point. The thing that kind of I couldn't believe was that they didn't accept an NIT home game, but they did accept the NIT's invitation. So they went on the road and played at Georgia Tech. So whenever these ADs and the others talk about student-athlete welfare, Indiana made their players travel to play an NIT game. And, anytime you play an away game against an ACC opponent, you're probably going to get beat. And so they sent their guys to Atlanta to get beat. Then they come back and they fire the coach. Instead of taking a home game where they at least they could have walked to the game and walked back to their dorms or their apartments, and they would have given them a competitive chance to win. And I just don't understand that line of thinking. I thought that was really a lame decision on their part.
Jay Bilas here on the Rich Eisen Show. And now you've got 2 coaches, like I mentioned, who are being asked flat out, are you interested, while their players and their kids are having the biggest games of their lives? It just, talk about awkward, Jay. I mean, there's nothing more awkward here.
Yeah, it is awkward. Look, Rich, I think this is pro sports, so I'm not overly bothered by this. I'm only bothered by the fact that the players aren't allowed to participate in the pro sports part of it. But, one of the things, it's another thing where you listen to these administrators talk about integrity and all that. Well, if everybody had integrity, then they wouldn't try to poach other schools' coaches. In the NBA or NFL, you're not allowed to do that. All these coaches are under contract. But it's sort of standard practice that when you've got an opening, you can just go take whoever you want. They can break their contract and go somewhere else. And I'm not sure it could operate that way. I don't think it's the right way to do it, but it's just the way it's always been in college sports. I don't see it changing.
And then kids like Nigel Hayes for Wisconsin get criticized for playing in the tournament and suing the NCAA to try to get paid at the same time. When you think about
if they have any thoughts of their own as to policy, they're basically told to shut up and play. And I've heard it from a lot of people on Nigel Hayes. I know the kid a little bit, and I think he's very thoughtful, very smart. I respect his views, but I can tell you there are a lot of coaches who don't. And coaches that are making millions of dollars are saying, hey, it's not like this kid's starving in the street. And my response is always, so that's the standard? They have to be starving in the street for them to want more or to expect more? When you guys won't walk out the door for $50,000, to give a speech or make an appearance, and every time you win a game in the tournament, you get $100,000, and you win the national championship and get an extra $1 million in your multi-million-dollar contract. It's a little bit. It's almost like insulting when people call the amateur players greedy, and when they ask for more than a scholarship, and everybody else who gets their fair market value, they're not greedy. It's just the players. It's almost laughable.
Jay, would you ever want to run the NCAA? I'm serious. Like, would you ever? Let's just say the presidents all get together, and some of the athletic directors all get together and say, you know what, this definitely needs to get fixed. We got to figure this out. The 21st century is here. There's no way to avoid wholesale changes, and they reach out to you. You have you have a legal background. You have obviously a history with college basketball that goes back decades. Would you ever be interested in it?
Honestly, it's a serious question. If I thought I could help, I would do it. And I've helped out with regard to the rules and sitting on different, a couple of different committees when I thought it would, I could have some impact in helping the game. If I thought I could help college sports, I would do it in a heartbeat. But realistically, I know that because of my views and the way I look at things, even though I think I'm a reasonable person, I know people within the NCAA structure would never go for it, just because they're firmly entrenched in this idea of amateurism on the part of the athlete. Like, they want to make as much money as they can, and they seem to understand that. I'm fine with that. I've never argued that they should make less. I like money. I think they should make as much as they can. It's just the idea that we're running this multi-billion-dollar business and the athlete is cut out of it, and the athlete's the only one. Every other student can make their fair market value, except for an athlete. I think that's wrong, and I think most administrators know it's wrong. They're just trying to preserve what they have, and they're certainly trying to preserve this tournament. Because I'll tell you, they are not. I get a lot of questions from smaller college coaches that are saying, are the Power Five going to break away? Because they're worried, and I don't know whether they are or not. But I always say I don't think they are, simply because they will not do anything that's going to jeopardize the health of this tournament, because it's a multi-billion-dollar cash cow. And they are not going to do anything that is going to jeopardize it.
Jay Bilas here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's going on in Coach K's head and locker room today? Walk some fans through what's going to happen with Duke loading up for one more tournament here with Coach K, at least.
I think they're in a really good place. They've had what I would consider a very difficult year. Coach K was out with his health problem and having back surgery, and he missed 7 games. I know he was in a lot of pain before that, and the rehab probably wasn't particularly pleasant. But he looks as good as he's looked in a while, and he seems to feel good. But the team played extraordinarily well in Brooklyn at the ACC tournament, and they were the team there that I think we thought we would see at the beginning of the year if everybody had been healthy. So I think they're on a positive upswing, and we'll see how it goes. They got an interesting draw. I think the toughest draw is Villanova, have to play Duke if they wind up getting to the Elite Eight. But the way I see it, Rich, they've got 4 guys that can get 25 or more in any given game, and Coach K is kind of moving them around like a chess master out there. He's got like 4 queens on his chessboard. He gets to move wherever he wants, and it's been kind of fun. There aren't that many teams that have 4 defenders that can handle those guys, and as long as they play well, as long as 3 of them play well, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat them. So it'll be fun to watch. I just don't know. You don't know that given all the time that they lost during the course of the season, if they can remain consistent at that highest level for 3 weeks during the tournament. That's the big question.
Last one for you, Jay. Who do you think does cut down the nets April 3rd?
I think North Carolina's the best team, and in my bracket, which I did really well yesterday, but that's always the kiss of death to start counting how you did. But I had Duke and in North Carolina actually making it to the Final Four along with Louisville and Arizona, and then Duke and Carolina playing in the final. Maybe that's some crazy pipe dream. That's never happened in the tournament. But I think Carolina's the best team when they play well. It's just, can they play well 6 times?
Jay, love having you on. Thanks again. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
Great being with you, partner.
Likewise.
Good to be with you.
You
Thank
bet. You got it. That's Jay Bilas.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.